Thank you. Good morning, everybody. How y'all doing? Still waking up. That's okay. That's all right. If anything is going to get you energized, I guarantee it is going to be this next panel. I have the distinguished honor of sitting here with four dynamic, exciting leaders from across rural Texas and Louisiana, or I should say rural and small town. We got a couple of folks from Shreveport as well. And really wanted to thank everybody for being here today. Today we're going to be talking about rural trends and issues. And here's the thing. We could listen to a boring old panel on data of what's going on in rural America. But you know what? It's a lot better to hear it from people that are young people that are experiencing these trends firsthand. And the way that this panel is going to work is that we're going to present a couple of trends that are facing rural areas and small towns across the country. And what I'd like you to do is take a look, and we're each going to take a little bit of time to just sort of interpret what's going on, make some sense of it. I'd like to hear what these data sound like through your voice. So I'd like to present these four terrific leaders from Pecos High School: Stephen Brandstetter, from Benton High School, Tamaya Davis, from Karn City High School, Brooke Gisler, and we also have from Benton High School, Jillian Maxwell. Thank you all so much for being here today. All right. Yeah, give them a hand. Okay. All right, so there's a second microphone right here. I think it should be on, and you can, if you want to pass it around. Check 1, 2. See, that one works too. All right. So let's start off with our first trend. If we could advance to the first slide, please. Oh, actually, before we do that, let's get some audience participation going, shall we? What we're going to do is have a little bit of polling. I want to see what the audience thinks about a couple of different issues that we'll be talking about. And I'm also interested in a little bit about you as well. So all you have to do to take part in the polling, you can just see right here, very simple instructions. If you're on the web, just go to pollev, that's POLLEV.com. Enter LeapsLearn766 as your code, and then respond to the activity, or you can simply text to LeapsLearn766 to 22333. That's 22333. Not 22233, 22333. That's right. Type in your message, and you should be ready to go. So we're gonna learn a little bit about the audience here. I'll give you a second. All right, well, while that's going on, maybe what I'd like to do is just kind of open up with a sort of a softball question. I was wondering, if you could tell me just a little bit about, what are some of the key impressions, some of the key things that you think about when you think about your hometown? Just very curiously. I wonder if you could just start with Stephen and pass it along. What do you think?
Mostly it's the lack of things to do in the town because there's so much oil field going on. And, well, let me rephrase that. There's a lot of oil field. The oil field is in Pecos right now. So there's a lot of traffic, and it was a small town to begin with. And I moved in because of the oil field, so I don't know, what it was like before the oil field got there. But there's never much to do, and it's slowly growing now. But for as long as I can remember, or anyone else who's lived in Pecos can remember, there's been just nothing. So for people in high school, unless you're in sports, there's really not much to do.
Mm-hmm. Got it. Yeah, other than drill for oil, that's about it. Right. Absolutely. Okay. All right. Well, Brooke, how about you? What do you tell me a little bit about your town?
Okay, so our town is very small. There's not much to do. We have a lot of Mexican restaurants, so if you're going out to eat, you're going to end up at a Mexican restaurant. We have very few stores to go to. We have a Dollar General there, and then just like Steven said, I'm sorry. We do we're booming with Eagle Ford, and it is slowly going down, and then it'll go back up, and all you see really are oil field workers. And used to a few years back, you knew everybody everywhere, and your neighbors, you were real close. But then the oil field moved in, so you're seeing all these unfamiliar faces now, and it's just kind of uncalming, you could say. But that's how my town works.
Boom and bust, and a lot of new faces all the time. Very interesting. All right, Tamaya, tell me a little bit about. Now, you're both from the Shreveport area, is that right? Okay, I'd like to hear independently what you think of Shreveport.
Well, I love it. The people there are very friendly, But I think it's time for change, and I think that there are lots of improvements that. That's why I'm happy to work with the Teen Advisory Committee, because I think there are lots of improvements that need to be made. But I mean, I love it, and I'm just ready for change.
All right, excellent. Thanks. And Jillian, what do you think?
So we actually live in like a smaller town called Benton, but
Okay.
there are some on the committee from Bossier and Shreveport. So what I think of our town, I think of like a lot of community support. So a lot of Friday night football. You can guarantee everyone, their mother and their grandpa is going to be there to watch the Friday night football game. Everyone will be there. And you can just count on seeing them every Friday night. Everyone's very loving. If you have an idea, they're behind you 100% where we live, and they're willing to do anything to help you out. I do feel like sometimes there isn't stuff to do except like drive around, go to Sonic, drive around some more. And I mean, that's fun. But I also think of the lack of community service information for teens to get is a lot of times it's like our parents telling us about these events we can go do or talk to, or maybe your school, and it's not as widely presented to us as opportunities we can have, if that makes sense. Like, it's not stuff that's just like everywhere, like come help. It's just like, oh, I kind of found it out on my own, like, or my mom told me. It's not a big like, everyone, let's go volunteer, which I wish that would be a change I would definitely want to make where I live.
Right. So we got a supportive community that is just waiting to change. That's really, really exciting, really interesting. And of course, Friday night, don't miss it, So that's right. But maybe need something more to do on the other 6 nights of the week too, right? Absolutely. Okay. Well, we got our polls up, and several of you are responding. Now, for those of you who have not started your careers yet, are early in your careers, I'm very interested in where you would want to spend the first few years of your career. And you're noticing here, this is something that's very consistent with what's going on across the country. Most young people gravitate to big cities after they go. It's sometimes what's called the rural brain drain. Well, what we actually know about the rural brain drain is that the rural brain drain's been going on since about, anybody have a guess on what year young people started leaving rural communities? About the 1850s. That's about how old that is. So the trend has actually changed very little since then. So a lot of people go out and they're looking for job opportunities, sometimes educational opportunities, but then sometimes they'll come back around age 30 to 45. Very interesting. So we see this kind of represented here. So thank you for answering our poll. Do we have another question available after that? All right, the next one. Where would you like to spend the first few years of your career? It's just phrased a little bit differently this time. In or around your hometown, within 3 hours of your hometown, within 8 hours drive of your hometown, or you'd have to fly to your hometown to get there. All right. Wow, okay, so I'm seeing a pretty even split among 3 categories. Oh, look at that. Okay, a lot of folks are actually saying within 3 hours of their hometown. Close enough to go home, but also far enough to maybe keep mom and dad from stopping by every 10 minutes, right? Absolutely. I can relate. Absolutely. Very, very interesting. Okay, this is also very common as well, where they're migrating. They're not necessarily going far away. But they're definitely not staying in their hometowns and oftentimes going to a nearby city. Is that something that seemed like it would be, attractive to you as well? Or what are your thoughts about where you'd like to spend your career?
Personally, since I really want to do aerospace engineering, I'd love to be working in or around Houston, like with NASA or maybe Boeing. But Pecos, since it is my hometown, it's maybe... How far is Houston from Pecos? 10 hours or so?
Yeah, about that.
So, I mean, it'd be better to fly back home instead of drive that long way. But
the career focus is important to you.
Yes.
Basically. Yeah, absolutely. All right. Brooke, how about you?
Okay, so I feel that since I don't really have like where or what I want to do, I just feel like if I went to a bigger city, I'd have so many more opportunities to look at instead of from like where I live, because you only have like a few options to pick from. But like, let's say I come to San Antonio, I have hundreds of options I could choose, and like I honestly wouldn't mind even going out of state because I have a lot of family like around the United States, so I wouldn't mind getting into a big city from where I live.
Sure, absolutely. So options are very important to you. All right, Tamaya, what do you think?
Well, I would like to be a corporate attorney when I get older, and so obviously I need to be in a big city where there are lots of businesses, and I also eventually want to have my own firm. So, like there's not a lot of publicity in like small towns or especially where I am. So if I want to be successful, I feel like a big city is best for me. So kind of far from home, but of course I would still visit my family or have them come live with me.
All right, excellent. Well, yeah, but I understood. Well, a lot, actually, in a couple of these cases, having options about where the jobs are. Sometimes you have to go to the jobs, right? Absolutely, they're not going to come to you necessarily. Jillian, what do you think?
So I want to be an ESPN sideline reporter. So I'm definitely going to need to be someone that can travel. So, but I would like to have like one home that I can go back to. So maybe in a rural area, maybe in a big city. So that's one career option. And then the other career option is doing something in marketing and advertising for preferably a big company in a big city is appealing to me.
All right. So, but you're kind of like me, as long as you're close to an airport, you're all right. So you can get to where you need to go. There you go. All right. Okay. Well, what I'd like to do, actually, while we're having this conversation, I'm wondering if we can skip ahead a little bit to some of our slides. Now I'm going to go out of order here. I'd like to skip ahead all the way to trend number 5 as we go through in our slides. And you'll see why. This is where we're talking about, we're talking about rural areas, and we're talking about what's happening in these places, because your answers are actually very consistent with what we hear. There we go. What we hear about a lot of rural places. Now, that's a big messy map. Let me just make it simple for you. Basically, any place that isn't blue or green is either losing population or it's growing very, very slowly. If it's orange or if it's red, it's losing population. If it's orange, it's losing population. If it's red, it's losing population very, very fast. Now, what's interesting is if you look at these places, you're going to notice that across most of rural America, about 75% of rural counties are losing population, and many of the rest of them are not growing quickly. So this is something that is concerning for a lot of rural places. And naturally, folks are kind of worried about losing their young people too. Let me ask you this. You talked about what makes your hometown appealing. What would actually make your hometown more attractive maybe for people your age, or maybe when you get a little bit later in life too, you get into your 30s or you're having a family or something like that? What do you think would make your hometowns more attractive places to live?
Well, I think that if Pecos had something, I don't know, even simple, like maybe a bowling alley or a roller rink, it would be more appealing to people around my age, because it's just something to do instead of, driving around, or if you don't play sports, then it's actually something to do. But if I were maybe came back when I was older, I'm not really sure, because I haven't gotten there yet. So, but I do think that even something small like a bowling alley would help a lot.
That's right. You'll take your time, Stephen. Don't worry. One thing at a time, right? Absolutely. Okay. So having just some more amenities and things to do. Brooke, what do you think?
I believe if our town could be cleaner, or there's not as much trash and the houses look much nicer. I'm not saying all the houses don't look nice, but there are some by our school that aren't the cleanest, and they're kind of run down, and I feel like it makes our community. We have a lot of rundown stores that are just there, and I feel like if we did something about that, it would make the community a lot more nicer and more attractive. And if we plan more stuff throughout the town and stuff, it would attract way more people than it is.
A little bit of civic pride, right?
Yes.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, Tamaya, what do you think?
Well, like Stephen mentioned, just more things to do, more things that will attract teens. Teens, we don't like sitting at home, especially us who are we just got our driver's license or things. You don't want to just sit at home, be in bed all day. You want to drive, you want to go do things with your friends on the weekends. And so I feel like if we had more things and also more opportunities, but where I live, it's actually a nice place to start a family when you get up in age. The only reason I wouldn't stay there, like I mentioned, was because of my career choice, but it's actually a nice place to start a family.
Okay, excellent. That's great.
So since me and Tamaya come from the same area, I'll just give what I think parents, or if you're wanting to start a family in our area, is good school district for your kids to get a really good education, but also a place with lower property, like taxes and things like that, like bills and stuff like that. Obviously, you're not going to want to pay like skyrocketing prices. So
Sure.
somewhere where your kids can get a good education and you can have a good job and it's a safe place for your family to develop, but also a lower like economy level, but you can still like succeed. But now like for teens, I think what would make our area more appealing is just more things to do. So like a lot of towns, I'm actually seeing that was a trend this year, is they're throwing festivals. Like these cities are throwing these big festivals. Anyone of any age can come, and I think it really is helping these areas that weren't booming before, but now everyone's like, I'm going again next year. Like, are y'all coming? Y'all come with me. And they just bring more and more people every year. So something like that would be cool. Or this kind of sounds sad, but places where people can take cool pictures. Like down here in Texas, like in Dallas and San Antonio, there's a lot of cool places to take pictures, which appeals to a lot of bloggers and very highly influential social media people. And that can also bring people into the area. And then, just things to do, and people, like things to pull people into the area.
All right. So big emphasis on amenities, on things to do is what I'm getting from everybody. You know, if we had a little bit more opportunity. Now, you're all dynamic young leaders, which is really exciting, but I imagine that life can be a little bit stressful too. And yeah, it's absolutely. And this is something that we hear from a lot of young people today. And I'm wondering if we could back up to trend number 3 for a minute. I'd like to give you some all the way here. Yeah, stress and mental health. Here we go. So, what I'm interested to know a little bit about some of these graphs here. If you take a look here on the left-hand side, we notice that Gen Z is actually feeling a little bit more stressed than other age groups about issues in the national news. And they're also the least likely to say that their mental health is excellent or very good, which is a little bit troubling. Can we go to the next slide too? So we hear a lot of headlines like this about Generation Z is stressed, depressed, and exam obsessed. They're under constant academic pressure. More than 90% of the generation is stressed out. And actually, if you could see, it's a little hard to see on the bottom left here, but anxiety and depression are actually the most common, one of the most common, commonly cited stressors. You're one of the most commonly cited problems among your generation. I was wondering, in the context of thinking about your communities, if you could tell me a little bit about, do you experience those stresses, and how do you think those stresses could be overcome in your communities?
Well, personally, I do think that I'm very anxious at certain things, like publicly speaking. I was very anxious to come to this. But to relieve that off of the shoulders of students and younger people, truthfully, I'm really not sure how to do that, because it's like with the world advancing, we feel pressured that we have to advance further than it's going, because we're the ones carrying it into the future. So every advancement we have to outdo, because that's what the human race is doing. So we're stressed and depressed because it's the burden that we have to carry.
It's kind of like being on a merry-go-round. It's not stopping, it's getting faster. Got it. Absolutely. Well, Stephen, you're doing great today, by the way. I think can't tell you're nervous at all. That's great. Brooke, how about you? Do you think in your community, I mean, again, you come from a smaller community, and do you still feel these stresses as well? And do you think there are ways of making it better?
Oh yeah, definitely. So a lot of the stresses I had in the beginning of when, like, I'm just gonna use the oil field as an example. Well, all you see are all these 18-wheelers, and as a young driver, I've only had my license for 2 months now. I get really anxious when these 18-wheelers are by me, and that's all you see on the roads. They also mess our roads up a lot. And then relieving the stress, I personally don't know how to do that. It just comes at me like a train, and then I just push through it. And for young people, again, like Steven said, everyone's looking down at us, y'all can do this, there's so much stuff that we have to live up to from the generation that was above us. And a lot of the reasons I learned that we may be becoming depressed is that like social media, that's a big thing because some of us, we post these pictures and like we get all these likes, and then we look at someone else and we're like, why don't I have as many likes as you? Like, am I not good enough? And everything like that. And like that can really get to some people.
Understood. Absolutely. It's really challenging. Yeah. Tamaya, have you found the same thing as well? Whether in social media or in your community? What do you think?
Yeah, so in my community, which I mean, anxiety, depression, that's everywhere. But especially in teens, like we're always hearing adults say, we've never had to deal with half of the stuff y'all deal with now. And I mean, that's true. Like social media, like Brooke mentioned, it just plays a big role in like, where this anxiety and depression is coming from. And teens face it every day, and adults aren't always informed on how to deal with that. So a way to overcome it, which I don't think you can completely, just like get rid of it, but a way to help with it is support. If a teen's going through something, I think adults should be informed on signs to look for in depressed teens, and how to, once you realize that the teen is depressed or going through something, how to deal with it, how to fix it, how to support them. And also, we need to be informed on how to deal with that, because when our peers, our friends are going through something, you can't just laugh it off. You can't just push it to the side, because that can eventually maybe even result in something as serious as suicide. Sure. So I feel that a way to overcome that is just information, like people being informed on how to deal with it.
Absolutely. All right. So I think we could all learn something about how to identify these signs. Absolutely. Jillian, what do you think?
So I definitely think anxiety and stress and like depression are problems teens are facing in my area for sure. We are a growing city in Bossier City, Shreveport, and there's a lot of pressure on our test grades. And that can really get to a student whenever you're going to 4 classes a day. Sometimes it's 7, depending on how your schedule is set up. And these teachers are like, okay, here's this homework test tomorrow, homework after that, another test the next day. And you're getting that in every class. And so it's like, okay, that's a lot. And you're expected to perform well to get these scholarships to go to these colleges. And then once you're getting these grades, your parents are like, oh, yeah, okay, so what college are you looking at? And so there's a constant pressure on school. There's never like, hey, how was your day? It's a lot of grades, and that can be a really big, personally for me, that's a really big stressor when that's all you do. 8 hours a day is you just go to school to get told to do more schoolwork and you get home. And that causes a lot of stress in me for sure, a lot of late nights and early mornings getting homework done. And I just feel like that's like a really big problem, because I haven't I'll relate this really quickly. We have an AP group chat for AP English, and we're always constantly talking about how we're so stressed about school, and like there's really no way to combat it, because I feel like no matter what time I started my homework, I'm still gonna be stressed about it later. It's just always a constant thing in my head going, guarantee there's a book I could be reading, guarantee I could be studying. And maybe just if adults or parents would realize sometimes that can get a lot to us, because I feel like in the olden days, it was a lot easier to just, because y'all didn't have the easy grades, as my mom tells us, that we have to turn in our homework to get a good grade. If you want to do your homework, you did it. If you didn't want to, you didn't do it in like the 80s and the 90s. And now we have to do our homework. We have to turn it in. You know what I mean, though? Do y'all understand what I'm talking about? My mom always said she never had to turn in homework. And so just like those constant things, I feel like in our society are a big stressor.
Sure, you can't just wink and a smile, get your way through it, right? Absolutely. It's the expectations have definitely gone up for everybody. I think we're hearing that across the board. What I like to do is talk about one last trend, and then we're going to end with our big question here. And this trend is, let's go back to trend number 2. We're going completely out of order here, because that's just how the conversation's going. We're rolling with the punches here. So let's go back to trend number 2. And this is a slightly happier trend. We got some new work habits that are emerging among this group, because we're talking about how hard everybody's got to work, right? Oh yeah, everybody's feeling it. So, but what's interesting is that Gen Z has some incredible skills. We're finding they actually have, they're technological savants. They're excellent at online research and better at entrepreneurship and innovation than even the millennials, which are actually the least entrepreneurial generation in a long time, even though entrepreneurship programs are at an all-time high. Very interesting. Some of the top areas of studies for this generation are business management, psychological studies, which may not be a coincidence, talking about what we're, with some of the pressures and stress that everybody's dealing with, and also education and development, And they have natural areas of advantage in terms of innovation, entrepreneurship, being tech experts, and also being very good at working on teams as well, is what we're finding. I was wondering, is this an accurate portrayal of your generation and your work style, or do you think that's have you seen something different? Do you feel like innovators, or do you see it a little bit differently?
Well, the way I see it is that it's kind of split, because there are those who are innovators, but then those who aren't. It's just like, because everyone's different in the way that they are. Like working on teams and stuff, and it's like, I was in robotics, so whenever we competed, we had to work together as a team. But instead of just competing, we had to always be sure that we had to make sure that everything was good for the competition. And after the competition, we always had to pretty much remake the bot before the next competition, because we wanted to make sure that we were better than we were before, because that's what everyone was doing. So we were innovating because out of necessity.
Okay, out of necessity. Very interesting. So it's not necessarily opportunistic. It's very much like, we feel like we got to get this done, and we have to, staying on top of things, as you've said before. Absolutely. Brooke, how about you?
So where I come from, they're like, in my class, we have we're all competing to like get our top 10 in the top 10, right? Okay, but then we have like the minority, I guess you could say, in our class, and they're lazy. I don't want to be rude or anything, but I feel like they're not trying to get out there and take the opportunities to become like innovative and everything, and like get their brain working and everything, and they'll only try when they need to try. So like when they're at that failing grade, that's when they'll think, oh, maybe I should start trying now, not when their grade is slowly decreasing. They only do it once they need to, and it's a need.
Right. It's reactive. It's kind of like, being out of necessity, right? As opposed to being opportunistic.
Exactly.
Ah, okay. It's a very interesting observation. All right. Thanks, Brooke. Yeah, absolutely. Tamaya, have you seen similar things, or, how do you see yourself in here?
Well, I agree with them because myself included sometimes, and this is just a generalization, not everyone is, but this generation, we're certified procrastinators. And when you procrastinate, you have to be creative, because you have to figure out, yeah, how am I going to get this done when it's like, should I do it a week in advance, or should I just wait till the 1 hour before it's due and try to, rush and do it? And that makes you like creative or whatever. But like they said, it's out of necessity. It's like, I waited this long to do it. I have to get this done right now. So, basically I agree with them.
Okay, excellent. All right. And, again, you're being bombarded with so much information, then it's, procrastination can happen pretty easily then, right? Yeah, absolutely. Jillian, what do you think?
So I feel like I kind of bring a different aspect into it. Yes, I do agree. Our generation is very, very lazy, and we are certified procrastinators. Literally, that English group chat is called Procrastination Pals. That's what we do. But I feel like I kind of bring something different to the table. At the age of 16, I own 2 businesses in our area, and I was the first one to sign with the Bossier Chamber as a teen business leader. So I kind of don't see myself as lazy. I was kind of innovative. I'm not trying to brag here, but I feel like I cannot relate as equally on this topic, since I qualify myself differently than y'all do.
So you can find the power within you to kind of stand up and
Yeah.
take initiative and
I didn't want to say facts or something that weren't true, so I would rather just be upfront.
No, absolutely. That's all right. Well, have you all, we'll ask this question going down. What's been the secret to overcoming procrastination? Because you're all leaders in your own way. We'll just kind of pass this back.
Definitely my calendar and my iPhone. That's my lifeline. So if I just okay, I have cheer tonight, tumbling tomorrow, and then it just keeps going. Yep. I find, okay, if I get there 30 minutes early, that gives me time to do my reading for school or whatever. Just definitely time management and communication with your parents, who help you on a lot of things, has helped me succeed in numerous ways.
All right, time management and communication. Tamaya, you have any secrets of your success?
I agree with Jillian, and when you know that you need to get something done, and when you're strong in that, I value my education. So when I know, I need to get something done that's going to help me advance that and really help me in my education field, or helping with the community, I'm going to get it done. So it's when you really care about something and you value something, then you can overcome, like the procrastination or whatever.
Absolutely. All right. Thanks, Brooke.
So I'm very hard-headed in many ways, and I think like for me, when it comes down to the last minute, it's just pushing through and hard work. Because when it comes to those late nights with algebra 2, it's just you gotta push through it. Because there's times where I'm just like, do I really even need to try right now? Like my grade is passing. Do I need to try? And then I'm living in the shadow of my brother, and he was like a plus straight A student, and like I feel like down because like I'm not like that. I'm like maybe an A minus B plus kind of girl, but just pushing through, and that's my way. That's how I get through it.
Just push through it. Okay. All right. Excellent. Stephen.
Well, for me, instead of waiting until last minute, I try to do it as early as possible. But I do catch myself sometimes waiting until last minute to do it. But and like Brooke was saying, it's I am passing, so do I really need to do it? Because I've caught myself doing that many times in economics this semester. But as I try to, instead of waiting until last minute, I do try to do it as soon as possible.
That's very good advice. Excellent, Stephen. Thank you very much. All right, we got one last question for everybody. We're going to wrap up by asking, let's just go to the last slide. This is our big question for the day. Let's go all the way, keep on going. Yep. All right, here is our big question. There it is. What is the one big thing you would like adults to know about your generation? I think this is very important for us to get inside the mind of your generation and really try to understand what you think are the most important ways forward. What do you think? The one big thing you'd like adults to know about your generation?
Well, I'm not really sure. Like I said before, we do feel very pressured, like moving into the future. So that, and we're honestly, like we look like we have everything under control, like some of us do, but honestly, we're lost. We don't know what we're doing.
Fake it till you make it, right?
Exactly.
Absolutely. There you go. All right. Brooke, what do you think?
Okay, so I honestly think that we grow up way too fast. Like, we don't have time to go play around anymore because it's always work, work, work. And, like, I mean, you look at all these big influencers, and they're, like, 15, and they already have, like, all this money and big businesses and everything, and they're getting contracted and everything. And then, like, I mean, what about you? Like, I mean, what are we supposed to do?
So being bombarded with role models, right?
Exactly.
And sometimes it's a little unrealistic.
And especially in this time, we're always like, oh, here's all this stuff. And, like, we get all this profanity nowadays. And, like, back then, no one talked like that. And now it's just, like, all this adult language and everything. And, I mean, I feel like we're just growing up too fast.
Yeah.
And I just wish we could have a childhood for a lot longer than we do.
Understood. All right. Very profound. Thanks, Brooke. Yeah. Tamaya, what do you think?
I just wish that adults were informed, like I talked about earlier, like the daily struggles we face and the impacts that they have on us. You know, we go through a lot on a daily basis, and it just impacts us in a big way, like the trends you showed on the anxiety and depression. A lot of teens are facing that, and I just want adults and teens both to be informed on the impacts of that.
Mm-hmm. Excellent. All right. Just to understand the impacts. Okay. Jillian, what do you think?
Okay, so I feel like one big thing I want adults to know is, yes, we may seem lazy to y'all, but eventually it will get done. And I think one thing I really wish y'all could understand is once we're coming out of high school, we are looking for a job. We are looking for our next opportunity in life. We just need a little guidance because personally from my school, there's really not a lot of guidance on what to do to go to college. And that could just be my school. I know there's other schools in my area who have a lot of guidance. Just mine doesn't. And so that was definitely one thing to learn. But the one thing, I it's like on the tip of my head, but I can't quite put it into words yet. So we're looking for a change. We're kind of tired of seeing our parents come home from an 8-to-5 job and they do the same thing every day. Like, some people love it, and some people that just doesn't work for us anymore. Our generation, we like things instant and we like things to not get old. And so we're definitely searching for jobs that are either always changing or it's a new job that people aren't going and doing yet. But yeah, we're kind of tired of the old and we want new.
Looking for
all
something
the time.
different.
We're always looking for something new.
All right, maybe that relentless innovators then. You're looking for change, but also slowing down a little bit, right? A little bit of patience, empathy, guidance. You heard it right here from 4 dynamic leaders across rural Texas and rural Louisiana. That's all we have for you today. Anybody want to say anything else? Yes, thank you so much. It was great to have you. Thank you so much for being with us today. That has been your panel on Rural Trends. It's great to see you all. Thank you very much. Thanks, everybody.